Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining this webinar. I'm so happy to see so many folks joining today, and I'm excited to have our first Appulate webinar where we've got a great guest on today that I'm going to be asking a lot of questions. We're going to have a great conversation, and today's topic is all about how to shop for Insuretech in 2021, which I thought would be an awesome topic to kick this thing off. We've got a lot of conferences starting back, which we haven't had in a very long time, and a lot of new technology, which has frankly skyrocketed over the last year. And so there are a lot of folks who seem to be either a little stressed out about that, very excited about it, maybe different mixed emotions. But I think by having someone like Gloria on today, and I'll introduce her in a second, she can help shed a lot of light on how companies shop for Insuretech, what is important. She's got a lot of really good opinions about this. And then on my side, as someone who provides Insuretech, I'll be happy to kind of answer any questions that you guys may have on this side of things as well. So let's jump right into it. I wanted to quickly introduce who Appulate is. So Appulate, that's on my side here, is an industry-leading technology company. We've been around for about 16 years. Our system and platform is used by about 80% of independent retail agents across the country. And we work with hundreds of carriers, MGAs, wholesalers, insurance markets, if you will, who want to automate their processes and streamline, especially the quoting and submission process, to make that as effective and automated as possible. So by the way, I'm recording this, and I'll be sending out a copy of this. So you're welcome to read through this slide deck as well, or contact me if you have any questions about this. But today I really wanted to focus on Gloria, and I'm going to pass this over to Gloria here in a second to talk about her company and her role, because it's so exciting and interesting. So Gloria, if you don't mind introducing yourself and talk a little bit about Pouch, I know we're all so excited to hear from you.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Gloria Guntinas. I come to you from the state of Texas today, and I've got company. That's Goody. We'll talk a lot about her today. But I'm part of the team at Pouch Insurance. I'm the co-founder of Pouch. We are a safety and prevention focused insurance company. Our focus is to deploy technology for small business owners to help them tackle their vehicles, to help them understand how their business is running from a vehicle perspective. As we all know, a lot of your customers that come and see you from an insurance perspective or as an agent perspective are looking to protect one of their most valuable assets. And so for Pouch, we use the power of telematics, very popular in the personal line sector. That was a portion of my career when I was at Progressive, and just super excited to be here. Delighted to have this opportunity to help you understand a little bit about Insuretech, give you a sliver of a view of how people like me are producing new products, generating new technology, and partnering with companies like Appulate to bring you a whole new way of doing insurance.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Gloria. I appreciate that introduction. So I want to kind of maybe dive right into that technology discussion just a little bit. For the Pouch side, what would you say as far as technology are your primary goals with your venture by this year? And then how do you see that maybe expanding over the next 5 years? That might be a tough question to answer, because it seems like technology changes so fast. But what has been told to me is, trying to look at the 5-year plan is so critical. And I'm just kind of curious how somebody in your role is able to do that.
Yeah, so I think I'll start with the question of how do you do 5-year technology, right? And I think that's a multi-pronged exercise. First is making capability investments, and in my sector in particular, having been in software for a portion of my career, when we talk about capability, we talk about the ability to build technology and a skill set that may or may not require humans to deploy things on behalf of your customers or your agents. And so you have to have flexible technology. Open API frameworks have become the norm. And so, for example, as you're shopping for modern technology, that has to be a leading necessity. I try to simplify these things. I always say I didn't grow up in technology. And so APIs to me are Legos, right? They are pieces in a puzzle that enabled you to put technology together in a comprehensive way. I think platform approach is evolving into connecting services. So some of the big providers of software technology in the insurance tech stack have degrees of closed systems and open systems. Open systems have some benefits to them, closed systems have others. But in general, you want to be able to have the flexibility to buy best in class. So what does that mean? Well, for us, that means managing budget and managing capability successfully. So a best-in-class situation might be a really successful key component in insurance is rating. So you may want to shop for a particular rating engine that might be able to be paired with a really excellent servicing system, either Salesforce or Soho, right? Salesforce, the industry leader, Soho, a fast follow that is very popular outside the US. So I think the key to technology has to be flexibility and openness, and then having the technical staff that is able to put these pieces of the puzzle together to build that cohesive ecosystem that then allows you to pick best in class. When you have a lot of money, if you are a big carrier, you could just buy ready-made components. I mean, we're aware of Guidewire, we're aware of Duck Creek. That's what these companies are doing, right? It's a one-time purchase. For organizations like ours that both seek to innovate, right? Because there's a lot of unique players in the market that are doing things very well in a narrow scope. Then putting that stitching together is what allows you to do that well.
Wow, that's great. That's really interesting. And I think one of the things that I've noticed especially is just utilization across the board in this industry of all of these technologies as well. I think a few years ago, the prioritization of using these technologies or adopting these technologies even internally across the board was kind of on the back burner just a bit. Like it was a priority, but it kind of wasn't. But I think especially over this pandemic, we've seen folks using technologies. I even like GoToWebinar and Zoom, but of course, those virtual interactions, working from home, and of course, how resources are used and allocated. So I'm curious if you've noticed that same kind of trend, if that's been an overwhelming change, and how that may impact business being conducted after maybe this pandemic is over, we get back to normal.
I think for someone like me, so right before I decided to do Pouch, I was doing a lot of, I played in the claim space and the self-service claim space for light damage, right? Leverage technology to submit a claim. And back then there was a lot of customers are not going to use it. They don't want to and then COVID came, and it's the same thing that happened in personal lines telematics, right? It was the right thing at the right time all of a sudden, right? And it was there. And so I call this period the proof point we told you so period. And so what it's allowed us to do is allowed us to have no excuses that consumers were ready to use this technology because they were forced into it. And then it allows us to actually validate a ton of use cases, which is very exciting for someone like me. Because part of what I do lives in a world of preaching what I believe the technology can enable. But then in insurance, as an industry, we generally tend to be really cautious. That is our nature. And so while you see advancements in banking, which no one thinks about going to the bank for anything, we had not seen that level of sophistication in insurance. Now, let's be clear. A loss is a complicated thing, so we always argued that there was a need for personal interaction. My use case was, but not everything needs it, right? COVID allowed us to do that. Allowed us to do that in the workplace. We are able to understand what employees are able to be incredibly successful remote, while also what other needs may arise for people to be in the office, right? And we're in an office today, so I think that's a fact. Use cases. Consumers were put in situations where they did not have the support or the technology, or people weren't there, and then they found a way to leverage the technology. So it's a little bit of a forced exercise. Telematics became the answer because I'm not driving. And I needed a way to tell my insurance company my car was in the garage. And so there was a huge uptake into telematics, and you saw the advertising go through the roof, Progressive, Allstate, with the billboards. And so I think that is what COVID has allowed us. A lot of technology use cases that were proven but didn't have a lot of demand because they were not exposed, all of a sudden got validated or got thrown out, right? There's a lot of use cases that said, oh yeah, we'll try that. Sorry, that didn't work. But I'm excited about it as we think of a fully digital empowered world. I've always had this moment for me. I feel like in the 90s, we took the questions from someone's voice and put them in a digital format, but we never really built digital experiences. And so then there was that transformation of moving those into kind of forms that became answers. And then those answers became validation points. So we no longer really ask the questions. We say, is this you? And is this what you need?
Right.
And, okay. And so now we're moving into this world where we're more of an information feeding exercise versus a gathering exercise, because the digital identity of the user is out there. In the personal space, that's well into maturity. In the commercial space, we're evolving it. And I think that's a passion for us, right? Bringing this data forward so business owners have power of information. I mean, in a perfect world, I love to be able to say, look, there's an accident on your way to this job site. Please take this route, avoid it. Don't sit in traffic, right? So that's ultimately what we want, is proactive insurance, is protective insurance. But this is the beginning of the journey in commercial. We've been at it for over 15 years in personal lines. It's an industry. COVID came, it all looks like it was ready-made and ready.
Right.
I think that's where we're headed in commercial.
I think so too. And I think you're kind of describing this in a way, but for those people who are on here who don't understand what you mean when you say telematics, I think that would be interesting if you don't mind just kind of defining that and how you use that, how that kind of plays a part in some of these things you're talking about.
Yeah, for sure. So, and please forgive me, I've been doing this for a long while now, but the act of using data when people drive. So when you drive, you have a footprint. And so if you think about it, you take turns, you accelerate, you decelerate. The act of collecting that information from your vehicle is called telematics. The act of using that for insurance then becomes a program, usage-based insurance or pay as you drive or pay per mile programs, right? So I think I always separate telematics from the insurance use case because I've always been passionate about driving data. And so I'm sort of rooted in this idea that driving data has a tremendous amount of value. And the way that I explain it to folks is a couple of different ways. We love OnStar for people who do have it. OnStar is telematics. OnStar collects information about an accident, which is driving data, and is used to create a safety and prevention vehicle to help a person who might be in need. So we all have telematics. We've had it for a while if you have OnStar and other products. But what I'm passionate about telematics in commercial is that we now are protecting people in their jobs, which I think it's a whole new dimension. And recently I experienced, and I talked to you a little bit about this, I think. We had a IoT use case at our home. I'm married to a big old nerd who connects everything in our house. He works for Microsoft. We're very fortunate. We have access to a tremendous amount of hardware and software. Our air conditioner, because we live in Texas, was failing to cool our home. In comes an email from Google Home telling me, hey, by the way, Gloria, we think your air conditioner might be failing. Would you like to make an appointment? And within 30 seconds, I had the ability to pick someone to come to my home the next morning. Now, it happened to be that my air conditioner was fine, and we knew. It was just a really hot Texas day. But there's a perfect example how data is driving decisioning. And that's what telematics is to me. So I don't tend to refer to the insurance programs. I do build those. I've had a long, extensive experience in those. But I'm interested about that data making people's lives better. And in particular for Pouch, I'm interested in keeping business owners safe and on the road without accidents so they can make more money every day.
Yeah, now that's a really good segue probably into the next slide here, which is, do you have a good idea, right? So, I mean, we're talking about all of this data, so and these different pathways to coming up with cool ideas to do things, and whether that might be what you're passionate about. In my case, I love seeing startup companies especially become a lot more efficient and be able to make their employees a lot more effective when they're working and just be able to allocate resources in different ways. I get excited about that. And when I try to come up with a good idea of how we can do that, I have kind of my own processes. But on your side, how well you or how could you suggest somebody else that's kind of in your position? How do you know you're coming up with a good idea to begin with? And what metrics do you use to know that you are being successful in looking for new technology?
Yeah, so I think there's a couple things that folks, I think sometimes the creation process is a little bit overblown and complex, because I
Mm,
wonder if people think, there's a lot of TV shows like Startup and this and that, and people think that a brilliant idea is born in a single moment. We are all customers, right? And so we all know what demand looks like. Now, if you're a crazy customer like me, which looks at experiences and literally rewrites them and sends them a note to anyone, their airline or anyone like that, think about a pain point. So something I really loved about my life in software is really learning about the pain point, right? So a good idea is solving a pain point. Right now, everybody knows the Henry Ford story. Everybody knows how ideas come about. But what I say is, as a customer, do you believe that's something you need or someone else is telling you they need? And
mm,
so don't come up with an idea out of something you think it's valuable, but really understand what point you're trying to solve. And so, and it could be really simple things, right? Like when I had the great fortune of working at Progressive and being early in the telematics usage-based insurance world, it was clear to that organization that driving data was fairer and more accurate.
mm.
So they understood the value of that technology to then build a portfolio to change how rating was used. How does Progressive did that? Well, they understood the value of credit before it became an available variable. So that's another way. Another way is to see technology in its power to change the way you're conducting business today. Cell phones change insurance companies for the better, right? Because we now have a different mechanism to communicate with our customers digitally. And so
Right.
the other way is, if it's not a pain point, what is it that this technology is going to change in your day to day? And now we all see it. Sometimes we take it for granted. Sometimes we say, hey, who would have known that Uber was going to become Uber Eats and we were going to order food in the middle of a pandemic, right?
Right.
But that's capability, right? And that's this ability to take technology plus humans and make something amazing. The last thing I'll say is that good ideas, especially really good ones, are really early, very early. And so don't be discouraged by other people not getting it. And
Mm,
that's the other thing, that a good idea requires a lot of courage, because you have to say, no, I think this is a good thing. I mean, Jimmy, 13 years ago, I said we can collect telematics data from a phone. When I was at the first company I did at Drive Factor, people used to think I was crazy. They're like, no, we can't use a phone. 4 years later, it became a reality for everybody. We had it, it became a reality for everybody. Today, if you shop Progressive, they tell you, would you like a device or would you like your phone? Get the same rating.
wow.
And so I think good ideas, especially exceptional ideas, may be early, but also think that a good idea may be cost saving or revenue adding. They don't have
Mm,
to be exclusively huge money makers. If you're in an agency, if you're in an MGA, if you're in an office and you find a way to eliminate processes, that is huge value. That is innovation. That's something I think it's a pet peeve of mine, that we tend to see innovation as revenue generating. It's exciting, but you can make an extra $500,000, so you can save an extra 250 and
right.
maybe spend a lot less doing it. So I think innovation comes from many places. And I think the key for everybody is to understand that it is a process, solve a pain point, improve a technology based upon that's going to change how your industry works, or create a cost saving or a benefit to the user that wasn't there before. All three are good ideas. They're just deployed in different ways.
Right. Yeah, I love how you can nail that down. Last time we had a conversation about this, I took some notes on important factors you talked about, and I think you've touched on a couple of these, like to be a little courageous and looking at this the right way. Modernization, you've kind of touched on empowerment, transparency, be genuine, be a cheerleader, and know yourself. How now some of these I don't hear a lot of people talking about these, especially being genuine, being a cheerleader, know yourself. You don't hear that at an Insuretech booth very often. So, what made you talk about that as an important factor, and how does that kind of play into the search for better technology and having a good idea?
So I think at some point you become a self-evident reality of what you think it's important,
Mm,
right? And so I'm a self-evident reality of genuineness and cheerleadership and knowing yourself. Because you're right, I do not look like an Insuretech person. As much as I have spent time in the space. And so a couple of those things become important to you because they have been the markers of what become achievement. So to someone like me, achievement means looking at my products in the market widely used. And so to get there, I had to be brave because I did not fit the mold, and I had to find ways to express to others, this is valuable by being a cheerleader. And by saying this is something. So what you see there is a list of the things that I have had to develop or maybe had to rely upon to drive innovation in the market. And I think this list is my personal story. And I think if you look or feel differently than me, that is not a problem. Like, not everyone has to be, louder than average, more talkative Hispanic woman to succeed. What we do need to be is we do need to be supportive of each other. What we do need to be is we need to be part of the process. What we do need to be is help people when they're afraid of failing. I think those are universal behaviors that everyone who's in a situation like me can dearly appreciate. Because what this person in front of you explaining innovation is doing is they're putting themselves out there with something that they think is meaningful. And your role in that is one single conversation can help that person either see the idea more clearly, improve the deployment of the technology, or systematically improve their day so they can get something done that's really hard.
Yes.
So I think that the point of this factors here is that has been my formula to employ my bag of goodies, what I have, to bring good things to the market. If I do not look and sound like you, that is not a problem. That is totally okay. But I do want you to see these things and know that you're going to need them. That if you're passionate about creating new things, you might look like Johnny, you might look like someone else. It doesn't matter. But I can tell you that you're going to have to be a cheerleader. And you are going to have to be genuine because people need to believe in what you believe. And you are not to be afraid of failure because failure is how you learn. And you have to be transparent because that's how people build trust. And
Right.
so I think everybody has to genuinely have that voice in them. And these are just the things that have been markers for me throughout my career that have helped me bring innovation forward, move the industry, and have the kind of impact that has made a difference in my life.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for going through that. I thought that was one of the coolest things that we were talking about, and it's so nice to hear you expand on that a little bit more. I just love your positive energy with that, and I think we could all learn a lot from that. And so to kind of another thing that you told me a little while back was to focus on capabilities, not products. And that was something else that resonated with me big time, because when I talk to folks who I hope to be partners with Appulate, I very much try to focus on specifically the capabilities of what we're doing and how that can work with you guys specifically, whoever it may be. And I think that's very critical because our technology, first of all, just does a lot of different things. And one thing doesn't apply to somebody else, that's for sure. So it's got to be a little bit more consultative. But the other side of this is kind of funny. Internally, we've talked a lot about how we should name our products and how we can do some marketing and what is this product going to be called and what is this product going to be called. And we've named things and I hardly ever use the names because I don't really focus on those products. I'm kind of curious if that's what you mean by that and how that applies on your side as well when talking about insurance products.
When I think of capability, it was my mechanism to explain that technology alone only serves a set of problems, right? And so capability to me is the full muscle that moves the arm.
Right.
You can have one muscle here, and that might be technology, right? If you think of it that way. But in order for you to move the arm, you still need a brain and a whole bunch of other things, right? And so capability is a combination of things. And so this is when I get to brag about Pouch, but we have a capability in which we can build things very quickly, right? And so that's a capability because it requires what? A flexible tech stack, a talented group of developers, a really talented group of product owners and technology folks, right? And clarity from vision. those things together build the capability that allows Pouch to build an Insuretech in 4 months and do a 2.0 in 6 weeks. And so that to me is muscle, right? That is a capability. And so when you're thinking about shopping for technology, see how it's going to enable that capability that is going to make you whatever business you think you ought to be. And that's something I've learned deeply and really appreciate about both MGAs and agents, that I believe that there's a misconception of how sophisticated the sector is at that level. And that sophistication, your customers, my peers, gets lost because we think they're small businesses. And I have talked to a plethora of men and women who lead technology roles within these organizations who are running full-fledged IT. And they're doing a really great job at deploying a broad set of technologies. I mean, recently I spoke to an MGA in the West Coast in a different scenario, and they're like, yeah, we have an API for our reporting. That's not a big deal. And I was blown away because my own preconceived notion assumed that it was going to be a spreadsheet. And she's like, no, I got an API, I'm good. And it really taught me to kind of look at it. Just like somebody would ask me to send a spreadsheet, I'd be like, no, man, we got an API. What are you talking about? But it's interesting. I think it's often missed that what we think of technology as the ultimate delivery mechanism. And I think that's where we have an opportunity to do better. Technology is an enablement. It is the ability to do something. And something else I picked up from working in software, you know, when you do a go-to-market for software, the software itself is just a component that you deliver. It's the car that goes to the showroom, but it's still got to be sold. And I think insurance, when we put the website out, we're like, hey, peace out, we're done. It's quoting. No, it's not. Insurance is the product. That experience that the customer feels when they're using your website is the product. The safety and prevention is the product. And so that creates a capability. So for us, we're building capabilities to be a forward insurer rather than a historical insurer by using real-time data to protect our customers.
Right.
If I were to list the amount of things that go into that, partnership with companies like Mohio and Geotab, because we need the data. Then we have to be able to rate the insurance. Then we need to be able to display that rate. Then we need to partner with companies like Appulate so our agents have the ability to effectively sell the product. Well, that's like 8 things, Gloria. Well, the capability is to be able to do forward rating insurance. Wow, that's like a whole nother accordion, right? And so that's what I always say to people. Thinking capabilities is not easy. It is so hard. It took me years of me training myself to think that way, which is another thing we haven't talked about, Johnny. I was not born like this. I work at it. So you can train yourself to do these things. And you can train yourself to become capability focused and to grab a whiteboard and to say, okay, so if I want to do this, okay, go get a sandwich, what needs to happen? And then you start thinking of those things in that way, and it becomes really, really empowering and powerful.
I imagine, especially, you know, say you're a business owner, you feel like what is a really good idea, probably is a really good idea. Maybe you've got the resources to do it. But I've talked to so many folks that are either startups or established businesses that have been around for a while, but they get lost when they're talking to vendors like us because of all the technical jargon. I have to be very careful when to include IT in conversations because it can get very technical, very, very fast. So I'm kind of curious, how do you cut through the technical jargon when talking to vendors? How could vendors maybe like us do a better job at maybe communicating these things so that when you're saying, hey, this is the capability that I want, and here, I don't know all the 8 steps, but hey, can you help me with this? And maybe I don't know what API means or telematics or whatever. How do you start to kind of navigate that world?
So I am the queen of analogies for this exact reason, right? Because I try to explain what it is that I'm trying to accomplish. And so there's a couple ways I do that because, like I said, I did not grow up a coder. I did grow up as a product person. You know, I grew up in rating, and that gave me great data capabilities. You know, like as a professional, I can do data, but I did not grow up in the engineering side. And so what I try to do is I try to say, look, I go to this website and I do this, and I want to be able to do this here. Or I say, look, ultimately, I want my customer to be able to do X.
Right.
And so have a use case. So that's another thing that I often find that it's missing in our lexicon at Insuretech, and it's missing in the lexicon of insurance. use cases are the way the technology world goes around. But yet in our sector, we don't tend to use that terminology to define the outcomes that we want for our customers. Often, early in my career, the outcome was to sell a contract, which was a promise that we would do something.
Right.
When you say that out loud, you clearly realize that's not a good use case. The moment you said it out loud, you go, why would people buy that?
Right.
It's very not exciting, right? So then we need to talk a little bit about, okay, so what is it that we're trying to do? And so I would like my customer to have the easiest quote in the market. I would like my customer to get free software. I would like my customer to pay their bill in 2 clicks. When you start speaking in English, you're also empowering the technology group to define the how they're going to do that. And so we have been very fortunate as a team. We operate in a very clear, scaled, agile framework, again, jargon. But what that means is that we use essentially things that were built for the automotive sector. You know, a lot of people know as green belt and black belt and all of that. I'll tell you what that means to us. We, as business teams, build what we want, right? We would want X, Y, Z. And then the engineering teams and technology teams build the how they're going to accomplish that.
Right.
And that combination becomes really powerful. Now, I want it to look like this. It is a function of the product team, but it has to be well done because the engineering team has to deliver it. And so defining the what clearly in English and allowing the team to define the how in a way that they believe is achievable is the key combination to bring the English back to technology.
Wow. Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. I've heard a lot of issues around that. Another issue I've heard is just big promises. So you start talking about, hey, you know, these are the kinds of things that I want to do, like you mentioned. These are maybe in plain English, the things that I want to do. And then a technology company comes back and says, yeah, we can do all of those things. Absolutely. They get into a contract and find out, oh, this is not what I thought it was. I wish I would have known more about this before I got into this relationship. And not to go against your point of not being afraid to try new things and failing, but how do you navigate that a little bit more consciously so that you don't end up in a bad contract, or possibly what kind of other problems have you encountered when talking to a technology company that you could maybe offer some advice to other folks and say, hey, avoid this, or here's a red flag of someone you maybe shouldn't work with, or ask different questions?
Yeah, so this is having been on the technology sector. So, I did work at Verisk and which is a data provider, but I also worked in the software sector. So I served the industry. So I learned a lot about how I was a good vendor, right? And I talked about the things that I wanted to make sure, because those end up being sales, not relationships. So the first thing I recommend always to people is build a relationship with your vendor. Make sure that your vendor's incentives are aligned with what you want. Because if they're not, then you have a sale. And a sale is not a good scenario. Now, of course, Oracle could not care less about pouch insurance. If we did business with them, we can't afford it. But I'm assuming, big behemoths are big. So think about partners that are offering the same use cases, capabilities, talking about those things that might be a good fit for what you're trying to accomplish. Then another good thing to do, depending on the complexity, is to do a proof of concept. Because what that does is it does 2 things. It holds you accountable, business, to say, here's what I'd like to accomplish. Let's say accounting software. I want these things. And then it forces you to actually put them out of your brain into a use case. And it puts the vendor on the hook for delivering on that use case. And so proof of concepts are great ways to understand the capability of the technology. Now, it's important that you have a trusted technology partner that sorts through complexities of approach versus the actual usability. So what does that mean? Our current technology partner, I love him to death. We have an extraordinary partnership. I can't say enough good things about Greg and Instanda and the team and what they've empowered us to do. We've encountered
Yeah.
challenges like any partnership would, but what I appreciated was that the team was willing to offer me alternatives and allow me to have those trade-offs. So there is no perfect software solution, but you have to be clear as a business about what are your priorities and how are you able to cope with that. So I'll give you a perfect example. Because we have a very capable technology team that in a past life built a telematics platform, and we just did it again, we have some skill sets that are unique that can cover some of that. That gives us, again, capabilities that others may not have. Well, what is it that you have in your arsenal that you're not thinking about? You might have a phenomenal accounting expert. You might have an underwriting machine.
Right.
And so look at your technical staff internally and see how that trade-off plays out to what you're trying to deliver to the market. And then the use case, the exposure of that use case is going to put the vendor on the hook for, yes, I can do that.
Yeah.
And then the last but not least, cadence. A bad relationship in technology is born from not having the right cadence of build out. Right, so we are a customer of Appulate. We do business with you guys. We meet on a weekly basis. We talk about our challenges. We operate as a unit. We troubleshoot together, engineering with engineering, and we get it done, right? That is a partnership. But don't think that you'd be like, hey, can I just get a green pen? Can you mail that to me? Oh gosh, no, that costs a ton of money. And so you have to be a participant partner. As a company, I very often see the business like, it's okay when it's your own house, right? You can blame it.
Right.
I can often see the business just sort of wanting to be detached and be like, can you just figure that out? No, that's a big one on you. It's the what, right? You as a business, you have to define the what to empower engineering to figure out the how.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I can say on this side, that it makes things tremendously more helpful when I can sit with somebody and they can explain these kinds of things. Because on our side, I mean, that is absolutely a priority. I want to be as transparent as possible, try to offer those proof of concepts and let you know, hey, this might not work if we do it this way, or hey, I love the fact that our team has been doing this for 16 years because I know I can call someone like Pavel and say, hey, is this a good idea or is this a bad idea? And he can say, yeah, you know what? We had a customer 5 years ago who tried that. It didn't work out. So, and we'll let you know. And so I always say, hey, you know, if you're talking to vendors, see if they're being honest with you or see if they'll tell you no. I mean, because sometimes.
And you just highlighted something super important, which it's like a mantra for me. Do you ever have a customer do this already? Can we piggyback anything?
Right.
And the reason why I say that is these, you know, come on, we're insurance. It's a finite number of problems. Now, I got to tell you, for my life over the last, 10 months of Pouch, no, I didn't get that luck. We're trailblazing in some ways. And let me tell you, being a cheerleader is part of that trailblazer yin yang. And we haven't, we're building a lot of things from the ground up. But nonetheless, having a partner that's there with you and who can, think about it. It's an extended team. Your vendor is an extended team. Empower them to be part of your organization. Empower them to be an advocate for the problem you're trying to solve. But hold yourself accountable that the use case is viable.
Well, so that's, sorry, go ahead.
No, that's a big one. A lot of people are like, well, what do you mean I can't have a pink unicorn?
Right. It's got to be viable. It's got to be viable from a technology perspective, but also, I mean, this goes right into this next slide, ROI, right? I mean, it's got to be, you've got to make money, right? You could spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on all the new cool technology and be broke, but how do you measure that you've got good ROI? And I've got some slides I wanted to share here in just a moment, but before I get into that, I just wanted to ask you how you like to measure ROI, which might be kind of a pretty open-ended question, but I'm kind of curious what kind of metrics you like to use.
Yeah, so obviously in the Insuretech venture capital world, private equity world, that was a great joy of my career working for private equity a few times. You learn a lot about this, but ROI to me, in particular, as I start to see what I call this second phase of Insuretech comes in a couple of different ways. Speed to market is an ROI of itself. And again, this is me praising things that we value and we think are important, but getting product out, actually figuring out if people want it.
Yeah.
That is a speed to market thing that it sounds good because, you know, we all went to business schools that we paid a lot of money and it sounds good, right? But speed to market is the ultimate ROI, because if you have a good idea, but you don't time it right, or it's not going out right, it's a deterrent. You can't get to the value, you can't get to the equation. I think that's a different way I look at it, because I think obviously there's many due diligence that you can do, and additional customers and additional premium per customer. Like, we all know those metrics, and I think that's another. Important as well is market and market sizing. So I often see lots of optimism and not a lot of due diligence. So for example, you know, if you look at the commercial auto market, it has a lot of B's behind it, lots and lots of zeros. Pouch, we seek to serve the light local customer, right? What I call the personal lines business surcharge graduating into under 5 vehicles, right? That is a narrow subset. Now, it's still a huge market, don't get me wrong. But often you hear in Insuretech or in technology, or in particular in startup, you know, what's your total market and what's your addressable market and all that fanciness, right? Well, in Insuretech, let's be clear, folks, we have that data. We know exactly how many vehicles are out there. We know how many customers are out there. We know our average premium. If you're thinking about a new coverage, if you're thinking about a new offering, and you don't have that data, that means you're not looking in the right place. And so I think as an industry, that's a due diligence that I often am shocked how little it is people invest into getting a healthy ROI. Oh, you know, if I sell this, it's going to be, you know, my personal favorite story on this is at one point in an organization, somebody said, we need to stop everything and do umbrella. It's a big deal. We need to go do it. And I said, what's the average written premium for umbrella? And they were like, I don't remember at the time, but it was like a $7 million net benefit across the US. And I said, that's going to cost like 3 times as much. So, and it's a really simple combo, right? I had it in private, but I think it's important that you say, okay, it's low average written premium. It might hit a whole bunch of people, but still low average written premium. It might be a complementary product. It might help with retention. There's other reasons to do it, but it is important that in insurance in particular, you understand the net value of that value.
Yeah. And I think on our side, I mean, and when we're working together, understanding what the tendencies of agents are is really critical too. And so that's something I wanted to bring up on these slides, as a matter of fact. So I think that's a good transition. One of the things that I think we pride ourselves in is trying to understand the industry from an agent's perspective. And we've got hundreds of thousands of agents who use our system. And so we've got this really awesome opportunity to communicate with them and get feedback. And so over the last 5 or 6 years, that's been a personal project of mine that I've really enjoyed, is just reaching out saying, hey, please conduct the survey. We want to know what you're looking for markets. And by the way, it's kind of funny. When we first started doing these emails, I thought, well, we're probably not going to get a huge response from agents. I mean, how many times do you get a survey in your email?
They would actually tell you.
They do. I got to say, I mean, there are our highest performing emails across the board, across every line of business partner that we've done an email with. This has been the highest. And so I think there's probably something to be said about that. But when we ask them point blank, hey, what are you looking for from your MGA carrier wholesaler type market? This is what they said on this screen, which is really interesting. So I'll just go through this really quickly, because there's a couple on here that frankly surprised me a little bit. I mean, instant quoting capabilities, competitive rates, quotes, fast quote turnaround, obviously, right? Of course, they want fast quotes. Everybody wants it fast or instant, please. Better commission, no surprise there. We want good commission.
Who doesn't want to get more money?
Right, exactly. But here's where stuff started to get pretty interesting. And I think this is actually the second half. This has changed over the last several years, where the first year we did this, we had different results in here. And it was mostly about just, hey, I want to get a quick quote. I want someone to be able to answer the phone, et cetera, et cetera. But now we see, we want an online questionnaire. we not only that, but we want this automated. We want automated underwriting. We want to land on a page, and we want to be able to have an automated process that makes my life easier. Quote on a single platform. Appulate's not the only one that does this. There are a lot of platforms out there that are starting to really embrace the concept of showing multiple markets in one place, and then those markets embracing the concept of that when they're going to be right next to a competitor. But we've been able to successfully prove that if you're in this kind of environment where there's more foot traffic, and instead of having an agent go to multiple portals out there or try to find yours down a dirt road, you have yours right in the mall where everybody's at. 245% submission count increase. I mean, just across the board, everything, new market selection, investigating new products and programs, all of these kind of things. And it surprised me to see that on here, but it shouldn't have, I suppose. Same with shorter questionnaires, obviously, personal touch and service, and a core data intake with no manual entry, which that one this last year was the first time that ended up on the top 10, and that's starting to become a fundamental part of this. So my question really is, so how do you get ROI while you're trying to simultaneously provide good technology to do all these things and provide personal touch and service to the agents where you're communicating with them and all of those fun things?
Yeah, so I'll start with the hardest piece of this, which, what I find interesting as a carrier is that for us in our desire to serve the agent market, I spoke to a very large swath of agents who were very kind to spend a lot of time with me. And one of the things that I learned throughout the process is, guys, if I had built the service capabilities on behalf of my needs, why would I not expose that to you?
Right.
And the moment of aha was, wait a minute, Gloria, you want us to empower us. And what I realized during those conversations is that I wanted agents to understand that I have a marketing decision. Right. I may give more money to Google, Bing, and company, or I may empower a small business just like mine to generate revenue for my business, which are agents. And so to me, especially in the commercial sector, an agent is an instrumental component in this, right? And so I want to build technology where I can use it, they can use it. Yep. Communications, emails, instant quoting, payments, anything that they want to empower the consumer to do for themselves while retaining the relationship. I am aware that there is a yin and yang, but that's an important component of a go-to-market strategy for Pouch. We empower the agent to have the same capabilities that Pouch has, and they can use them on Pouch on behalf of their customers, and they can have a great experience. So that was a fundamental way in which I built Pouch, and it's really important for me that the agent knows that I'd much rather empower them to go own that transaction. But the digitization is also the expectation of the customer, and that I have built my technology to be available to them. As I look at this list, I see 3 asks. You are giving me 3 capability asks. Give me simple product. Gloria, I want simple product. Because when I see less questions, system rating, easy underwriting, simple product. So how do you accomplish that? Well, we have 9 questions in our quote. And in our 9 questions, we actually have 4 that are pre-filled for, capability scores that we built for ourselves. So that's how insurance companies need to serve the market better. We have a simplified quote that's very easy to use with a lot of variability in the rate. That's what they're asking for. When they're asking for better commission, they're also asking for better service, meaning don't make me spend a bunch of time with my people and my staff and myself trying to get through a quote. If I can do a quote in half the time and sell you good rates and give you good service to your customers, that is better commission. I am costing less. And so I think that's what they're also asking for. So that's the second thing I see. They're asking for a better service platform. Don't make me call 7 times. Don't make me jump back and forth. Give it to me. I can digest it in a way that I can use it. And then the personal touch and service, I think it's that evolution, right? Through COVID, we realized that there's a lot of things that can be done digitally now, but we have to put the tools out there for customers to do it. Right. So one of the big passions of Pouch for the second half of the year is empowering more digital technology for the agent not to have to make a phone call. So I'll give you a perfect example. I'm sitting here, I'm a CSR, I'm having a sandwich. If I need to chat with Pouch, I should be able to chat with Pouch. So I can log on and have a quick chat and not have to make a phone call. Or I can be in an existing chat while I'm answering a phone call, and it could be about Pouch, and let me ask while I'm on there.
Right.
And so we are empowering them through technology. So they're really telling us three things, Johnny. They're saying, give me simpler insurance to sell.
Yes. Yeah.
And this is an interesting thing, because it's carriers, generally, we said more sophistication and rating makes more accuracy. And we put that burden on the consumer and on the agent. That's not the way Pouch sees this. We see the ability to gather the data and empower a simplified quote. Again, gather the data, bring a simple quote as the capability that we built to change the market. We still have pricing sophistication. We still have rating accuracy. We're not putting that on the agent.
Yeah.
That is a big component that I think it's a way in which we operate different. Give me better tools. Give me tools for my customers. Give me tool for my staff so we can operate better. And I think those two, as we talk about how we see the future at Pouch, you know, we constantly, I mean, constantly, every day, there's a text message going around. Hey, did you see this tech that we can use? Does this fit in anywhere? How do we think about this? And so as a business, you use a lot of technology today, both personally and as a, sit there and think about the last time you used a product that got you excited. Find out what that product's name is and see if it fits in your agency. I recently was reading about this fantastic Insuretech in Mexico. I went to visit their site. I click in and become a partner because I was curious. And they have this amazing form that they use to collect information on leads. And I was, oh, that thing's pretty cool. Who did that? Oh, okay. And I'm sending it to my PS. I'm like, look, this thing is so cool. You are a user. If you find something that you think a business that you buy from is doing well, see how it fits in your business. 9 out of 10 times, you're going to find out it's affordable, it's easy to deploy, and you'll get a lot of value from it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I love the idea of empowering the agents. And I just want to be clear to anybody listening to this, this is measurable, and this is not just anecdotal either. I have another slide I could bring up now where I've pulled from other studies that people have done to this same effect that are saying, hey, agents want this, and not only do they want it, they're using it when it's there. So, I mean, 86% of agents say digital technology is vital to helping their agency grow. So not only is this, hey, yeah, we would like this, it would be nice, but they consider this vital to the growth of their agency, which is a pretty surprising thing. The other surprising thing was 90% of these agencies are already using tools like agency management systems currently, which is why a product like ours, I like that we've put so much focus in trying to connect to all of those agency management systems out there to try to empower them, make this a lot easier, and create a platform that doesn't cost them anything, so they're more inclined to use it. 76% of agents feel like they're not getting the most out of their digital technology, which that's kind of shocking in a way that number is so high. I thought that would be half, and half would be bad, but 76% of agents are feeling like they're not getting the most out of their digital technology or they already have or that's available to them. And finally, agents increase their sales funnel by 20 or 30% with better technology utilization, which I think supports that first claim where they feel like this will help their agency grow. So I'm curious your thoughts on this. And then, of course, I want to open up to any questions that folks may have. But yeah, I wanted to back up your claims there a little bit.
The only thing I would say to this, and it's that 76%, men were tired. Let me explain that. As small business owners, we're tired. We make a business decision on technology and a particular need or a use case that evolves. We have no way of testing it, right? And so I think that's what that is how do I continue to utilize what I have?
Right.
And that's what that 76% is. Man, I'm there. What do we buy now? I'm there. I just think we're tired. We're busy, but we have to find ways to harvest that better. I completely agree. I relate.
That's awesome. Yeah. So at this point, I appreciate everything so much, Gloria. You're just an absolute rock star, and I appreciate all of your time today. I wanted to put up your contact information just in case anybody wanted to reach out to you and work together. Or
You know, I know that we have these big fancy titles now, which really in some way irk me quite a bit, but it is an open invitation. Please take some time to find me on LinkedIn. Please take some time to tell me how you feel about Hatch. Please take some
Absolutely.
time to challenge my ideas. Tell me why telematics is not good.
Hmm.
Please take some time to ask me a question or something you're passionate about. Johnny will tell you there isn't enough hours in the day that I'm willing to do this because I'm so passionate about what technology can do for the market. So this is a very genuine open invitation for anything that I can do, any angle that you would like to explore or talk about, or a problem you're trying to solve in your business, in your agency, that maybe you need a person to spend 30 minutes helping you think through it, and maybe I'll get lucky. I am delighted to serve in some functioning in that way.
That's awesome. So if you have a few minutes, I wanted to open up for questions. So if you are on here, you can go to your side panel. You can ask a question on the question panel. We already have one in here. What made you decide to work for startups rather than more established businesses?
So I've had the fortune to work for some of the best insurance companies in the United States and around the world during my role as consultant, as an employee. Progressive was a pivotal experience for me. It basically, I met my business partner now, Steve McKay, who was my boss at the time. Startup is personal to me because I do have a great amount of energy around changing the world. And I think
Hmm.
startup does give you the opportunity to do that uniquely. I think Insuretech entrepreneurship requires a lot of energy that goes into helping the organization evolve. And therefore, I'm not as focused on solving the problems that I'm excited about. And so I
Hmm.
can either do organizational growth and change, which I became quite adept at doing, or I can solve the problems in the market and move us forward. I've done both. And so Insuretech allows me to solve the problem a little bit more effectively.
That's awesome. Here's another one we've got. So sometimes products just don't do well. So how do you know when it's the product versus the approach?
You gotta have telemetry. I don't think I talked a little bit about that today, but we are very data sensitive. I think I talked a little bit about data being available, but we are a data first company. That is in our DNA. So products will fail. Is you have to know exactly why. And so how do you do that? So for example, do you have telemetry on your funnel if it's an advertising issue? Do you understand what it is that the value prop that you were selling? Do you have feedback mechanisms? We leverage Hotjar and Pouch, and we find out what the customers feel about our experience. So you have to have a measurable event. I cannot emphasize that enough. Before you put it out, you're going to say, I am successful when, and don't tell me when the revenue grows. Well, we all want that. Give me like multiple flavors of how you know that you're getting some level of telemetry on it. And be honest. It's hard. I know, man. These products are like my children, but you have to be honest. You absolutely have to be honest.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Gloria. I think we're getting to the end here, so I'll stop this now, and we'll of course put this recording up and send this out to the folks who might have had to drop off, or if you wanted to rewatch a part of this. But I appreciate everyone's time so much. Please feel free to reach out to either Gloria or myself. We're always happy to help and talk about this stuff. We're both insurance tech nerds for sure. So, Gloria, thank you so much again. You've been amazing, and I look forward to talking to you again here soon.
Thank you so much, everybody.
Bye now.